Welcome to volume 29. That's right, we've done 29 of these. As you guys know from last time, we had a video, if you were here last time, that had the correct pronunciation of this word. Okay, so as far as I know, since last time, the correct pronunciation has not been corrected yet. So it's not PechaKucha, or Pikachu, or any number of other iterations. We're sticking with PechaKucha. All right? All right, everybody together now. PechaKucha, yeah. Okay, so what is PechaKucha? I know that I've seen a lot of the faces that have been here for many, many times, so you guys, many of you know, but some of you don't know. And so what PechaKucha is about building community through the sharing of ideas, stories, and passions. So we have 4 events a year, and each use the exact same format. And that format is every presenter gets 20 slides, exactly 20 slides, and each slide appears on the screen for exactly 20 seconds, hence the, it's not a Bible verse, although it's our Bible verse. PechaKucha has been happening in Burlington for 9 years. We've had over 260 unique presentations shared, and it's run by a core of volunteers, absolutely 100% volunteers. Nobody's making any money from it. So thank you. Thank you. So you might ask, why do we do it? Why do we volunteer? Why do we put so much effort into it? And it's because we believe that there is enough divisive rhetoric in the world today. And we believe that coming together to share our passions in this welcoming forum is the kind of event that can lead to meaningful understanding and change. So we believe in the power of PechaKucha. So we would like to take a moment to recognize the lead sponsor of PechaKucha Night, Mascoma Bank. And is Pete Jones here with Mascoma? Pete? No? Okay. Well, Mascoma makes this happen. They are the lead sponsor. They've stepped up to provide us with the funding that enables us to take PechaKucha to the next level, to bring it here to the FlynnSpace. So we're very, very thankful for Mascoma. And we have also received generous support from Media Factory. So the Media Factory has been videotaping PechaKucha Night since its origination here in Burlington. Their videos are available for you to watch on the RETN website. I'll say a little bit more about that at the end. Solidarity of Unbridled Labor, they donated their expertise for our branding, our design, and promotion. And then, of course, yeah, awesome, guys. And then, of course, our longtime media sponsor, 7 Days, who has also been with us from the start. And I mean, honestly, what would we do without 7 Days? So thank you. So you'll see a couple of people walking around with this shirt on. These are all our volunteer committee members who help steer this ship to port. You can spot them wearing these shirts. If you have any questions about PechaKucha Night, if you're interested in presenting, or if you're interested in learning a little bit more about it, or if you're interested in helping to put on PechaKucha Night, we're always looking for helpful volunteers. Please don't hesitate to ask anybody wearing this shirt. So tonight is our second event in FlynnSpace. I wanted to give a shout out to Stefan Jacobs of FlynnSpace, who's been so accommodating to us and putting this event together. And the reason why it's been running so smoothly here is really a result of his hard work and his help in accommodating us. So hey, big hand of applause to him. Like I said, PechaKucha is an international phenomenon, and it's now at 1,186 cities around the world. There are over 100 PechaKucha Nights in September alone. Now, tonight is actually kind of an off night. There's only two other cities besides Burlington this evening having PechaKucha: Winnipeg, Canada, and a community in Finland, and I'm not even going to try. So, but it varies. Like next week, next Thursday, there's 12 events happening, so it varies. So PechaKucha Night is when we take the artistic and social pulse of our community through the lens of a very special group of people. They are your neighbors, they're your family, your friends, perhaps a new acquaintance you haven't made yet. They are our presenters. And we have an amazing lineup tonight of 12 presenters. So let's give them a big round of applause just for showing up. Okay, so the way the evening's gonna work is we're gonna have 6 presenters, the first 6 on the right, and then we're gonna have a brief intermission, we call it a beer break, and then we're gonna have the next 6 presenters. So, you guys ready? Yeah. All right. Is that good or bad? That's good. Okay. Perfecto. Our first presenter of the evening is Misoo. Misoo. The title of Misoo's talk is The Giantess.
Sure, you can start the slide. Hi everyone, my name is Misoo. I am Korean American and I'm a visual artist. I moved here in Burlington about 4 years ago, and that's the same time when I start this project called the Giant Asian Girls and the Giantess series. The Giant Asian Girls and the Giantesses are the acrylic painting and collage series. So I usually paint the figure with acrylic paint and add the collage at the end. It has been about 20 years since I moved to America. And as an Asian woman living in the US, I have witnessed the pervasive Western male perception that women like me are sexually exotic, physically delicate, and culturally submissive. Western men often comment about our small body size, masking them as compliments when what they really mean is weak, less able to fight, delicate as China dolls, and silent as geishas. Juxtaposed to these stereotype comments, I start to depict my Asian figures, larger and stronger than her surroundings. She is occupying most of this canvas space with her body, her head, toes, elbows, and knees touching the edge of the canvas frame. They are dominating entire village with her size. After creating several paintings of giant Asian girls, I realized that my models are dominating the scenes with their sizes, but not with their body languages. So I adopted the male power gazes and poses that were oftentimes used in traditional portraits of powerful male. So I start using Western portrait painters like John Singer Sargent or a portrait of Napoleon to depict the female bodies. About a year ago, I expanded the subject matter to females who have survived the traumatic memories in their lives. Because my last project before the Giant Asian Girl was about raise on awareness of domestic violence, I wanted to continue to include a meaningful message to my new project. I reached out to local females who have experienced traumatic memories in their lives and who have survived. The models of the Giantess series are real women in our own community. They are colleagues, neighbors, families, and friends who was reborn as a giantess, free of her painful memories and post-traumatic suffering. In the Giantess format, female power, self-esteem, and agency have been restored. In fact, the sense of power has grown to legendary superpower proportions. Outwardly, the series references a transformative cultural response to patriarchy and male dominance by reversing the male-female power dynamic through physical size. Inwardly, however, it is a therapeutic intervention aimed at the women who modeled for the paintings. all of whom had been personally traumatized by violence at some point in their lives. The series encourages women to make no apologies about physically dominating men. The Giantess does not seek revenge. Rather, her purpose is to provide a release from the realities of gender-based violence and imagine the freedom of a world devoid of hurtful memories and fear. For the last about 10 images, I included the voices of my models who voluntarily share her stories. Some of these quotes does not every quote does not match with the images. This is Wei Wei. As an Asian woman, I am not allowed to be inquisitive or assertive. I am supposed to be demure and compliant, not gregarious and tenacious. My mother told me that I can achieve anything that I want to, despite my gender and despite my skin color, despite what white men, all men think of me. I can overcome those stereotypes. Mina. It is no secret looking at me that I am fat. I have been aware of it since I was 5. I knew all through 12th grade when I was bullied and told I should just die because being fat meant I wasn't worthy of life. I am so much more than my weight. I am kind. I am empathetic. I am friendly. I am beautiful and powerful. Ashlyn. To become the giantess, a lioness, you let go. They will make you feel you deserve to be drained, that you deserve to give up possessions of yourself and your peace of mind. Through this trauma, I have learned to grab hold of my own reality and that there will always be validity in my emotions. Emily, I have to drink to dumb down to your level. My husband told me. He spoke to me only in insults and skillfully chose words that cut the deepest. Though I left the marriage with no visible scars, he had carved jagged canyons into my heart and soul, forever changing the landscape of my being. This is Carmen. Love is what they called it. All explained to me that their violations were an act of love. I'm sorry you think that, but I loved you. I didn't rape you. I loved you. Women are viewed and analyzed. Women are manhandled by naughty boys in museums who know that we already indicated with a sign, please do not touch. Do not touch, please. The image of a woman who looks like me is not painted for you to look at. She is not painted for you to enjoy her. The woman in these paintings and all the women not painted are not objects for handling. There's more to these women than their faces, their bodies, their relation to you, or their utility for others. There's more to these women, these people, all these things on display than one can see. You may look, you might see. Do not touch, please. Thank you.
We have a mantra in PechaKucha that is more passion than pitch when we ask people to give presentations. And apparently that mantra doesn't actually apply to the host. So I'm going to give a little pitch. And that pitch is going to be that Misoo has a work of art in the Fleming Museum up this fall. So if you want to see one of these amazing works of art, please stop by the building. Our next presenter this evening is Marcus Keely. The title of his talk is Point of View. Marcus.
Thank you. So before I start, I just want to say thank you to all for coming out. It's awesome to see so many faces. And thank you to Michael for encouraging me to do this, and to my Solidarity crew for coming out in solidarity to support me. And also to the PechaKucha crew and my girlfriend, Adrian, as well. So, good to go. So hopefully this picture is not too familiar to you guys, but unfortunately it's more and more of a reality. We've got these little black screens in our pockets that we're staring into, and we're basically living in this attention battleground. Everyone's vying for our attention, telling us what to look at, when to look at it. It's a constant attention war ground. So a few years ago, I came across this article online by this journalist and educator, Rob Walker, and he teaches at the School of Visual Arts. And as one of his MFA classes, he asked his students to practice paying attention for 1 week because he felt like practicing paying attention was what you needed to do to cultivate an original point of view. So over the years, his students came up with a lot of different techniques for paying attention. And what Rob Walker did in this article was he collected these different ways of paying attention and made a list of 20 of his favorites. And a few of these that really struck me, one was walk with an expert. And so this would be doing your daily walk to and from work or school, but with someone who's a botanist or a geologist. And they would point out different things along the way. Another was creating a sound map of your neighborhood where you'd record certain sounds and map them on Google. The one that really caught my eye was this one called Let a Stranger Lead You. And this was inspired by this artist Vito Acconci, who in 1969, for 4 weeks, would follow a different person around the streets of New York City each day at random. And as he was doing this, sometimes someone else would follow him with a camera and document this. So the rules for this were pretty simple. Here's a picture of one of those followings. Vito would follow these individuals, and he'd follow them until they went into some sort of private space where he couldn't go himself. So sometimes this only lasted a matter of 5 minutes when someone would hop into a taxi car and drive off. Other times it lasted on the order of 5 or 6 hours. Once he followed someone into a movie theater and had to watch the movie with them. So for Acconci, the whole purpose of this was getting outside of himself, putting the control of his own actions in someone else's hands. But I was really intrigued with this idea and thought that this would be a cool experiment to try for myself. But I realized pretty quickly that Burlington is not Brooklyn, and people would probably be freaked out by this. So I thought, what is a subject that I could follow that wouldn't mind it so much? This is Snicker, is a cat that I live with. And I thought, it'd be great to follow Snicker for 6 hours on a Saturday, but this is pretty much what he does for 6 hours on a Saturday. So I mustered up the courage, decided to go to the busiest place I knew of in Burlington, Church Street Marketplace. And I got up there and I made one ground rule for myself. I was going to try to lower the creepiness factor a little bit, and I was only going to follow men. So I found a man, and he's in this photo, but I'm not going to say who it is, and I followed him up and down Church Street. And one of the best things about following people is that you're led to these really interesting places. So I don't know if any of you know this. It's kind of an obscure shot of this place, but this is a game store that's on sort of the south side of Church Street Marketplace. I didn't even know that existed. And I may have come across it on Google at some point, but this was a much better way of finding out about it. So he led me here and then to the comic shop beneath. And then about 30 minutes later, we ended up on top of Marketplace Garage, where he got into a van, met up with some friends, and left. But I was left there with this beautiful view of the city, which I had never been on top of here before. I didn't even know that this view existed. So when I was doing this, I wanted a way to keep track of where I was going and how long I was following people. Acconci, when he did it, used maps, pen, paper, and a watch. I had the Strava app on my iPhone. So I could just put it in my pocket and leave it, and would record how long I was following. And it creates these really interesting kind of works of art in and of themselves. So that was an hour and 5 minutes of following. So I was sufficiently intrigued. The next day, I came back to Burlington, to downtown, and I went to the South End neighborhood. And in the Five Sisters area, there was a man with a backpack on and a ball cap, and he seemed like he was kind of going at it, and he was headed somewhere in particular. So I followed him through the winding streets, and we crossed the city park, which I've been to many times, but haven't actually walked through. And where did we end up? Well, as the saying goes, all roads in Burlington lead to Church Street Marketplace. So we ended up back at the marketplace, and this man ducked into a restaurant, ostensibly for lunch. And had I been Vito Acconci, I probably would have followed him and ordered the same meal. But it was such a beautiful day that I stayed outside and saw this man with this purple shirt kind of sauntering along the sidewalk. And I said, he looks like he's going somewhere interesting. I wonder where he's headed. It became evident pretty quickly that this guy was not from around here. And the reason being, he walked down to the waterfront, in that little tourist information booth that's there, he ducked in and talked to the man about all the various attractions in the area. And so I was obligated to duck in as well. And then he spent time at the boardwalk looking at all the different signs that are there, all those little maps and information, which as a resident, you usually don't read those things. But I had to take the time to be there and pay attention to all of this. So we ended up walking to this pause place that looks out over Texaco Beach and North Beach. Many of you are probably familiar with it. I bike there every day in front of it and back again, but I never had taken the time to actually hang out there for 15 minutes. And while I was there, I saw this couple having a champagne toast in the back of their boat. All these little nuances, these little moments that otherwise would go unnoticed. So after about 15 minutes there, we wandered back the exact same path back into town. And the man I was following ducked into the Burton store. I ducked in as well. And I think at that point he may have been on to me because he quickly ducked out again. And then when I got out on the sidewalk, he was gone. So I got back home and I thought, you know what? I'm going to see if what I just did was really weird and unusual. I think I already knew the answer, but I posted this poll to a group of my friends on social media. I'm the only one who said yes. It may have changed by now. The point being that you don't have to follow someone to see something new and to pay attention. Kind of circling back to that first photo of the baby staring into the phone, wouldn't it be nice if we had more moments like this of awe and amazement? So I encourage you all to practice paying attention in any way you know how or can think of. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Marcus. And I also want to call out Mark. He's one of our core volunteer committee members. He's somebody who's an integral part of actually putting on the event tonight. So thank you, Marcus. All right, our next presenter of the evening is Jen Berger. Jen's presentation tonight is titled Community Engagement, the Art of Creating Resistance. Jen.
First couple slides, I'm going to just look at this, but I'm ready to go. Can you remember the last time someone asked what you thought and also actually listened? And what about when your input was valued and appreciated? Imagine that process in a large group. Imagine feeling like a unified front against something harmful or destructive. Imagine the pushback and knowing that you are resilient and pushing back some more. That is the art of creating resistance. I was first exposed to community engagement as a student at Burlington College. My teachers encouraged me to go into town and get involved, and I went to meetings and charrettes and other things where my voice was part of the decision-making process, and it was a very powerful experience for me, and it paved the path in me learning about what true community engagement was. Some projects that I learned about and followed that have a true community engagement process are the Village of Arts and Humanities in the north central part of Philadelphia. 40 years ago, Arthur Hall started a humanitarian center that was really for the residents to come to a place and sing and dance and have a cultural experience. The neighborhood was still pretty laden with garbage and poverty and downtrodden, and so they hired artist Lilia, who was a mosaic artist who created multiple mosaic sculptures that really brought people into the neighborhood and created a pride over the neighborhood and engaged people in the work that they were doing. It's now almost a whole block long, and it's an active community center in which multiple programs are happening that are not just creative, but really engage the community empowerment. Somebody's familiar with that, that's awesome. Another project that was really exciting to me, the next slide is coming, is the Dudley Street Neighborhood Initiative. And that is in Roxbury, a neighborhood outside of Boston. And they have been involved in a decades-long process to reclaim their neighborhood. There was a time in their neighborhood where, there was places where the landlords were setting their buildings on fire rather than collecting rent because they couldn't afford it. The city was dumping trash there. And so they went through many, many processes of community engagement, building relationships with the city, and creating murals and other works of art to share the process that they had. And they are now living in a highly functional environment and neighborhood, working really well with the folks that are there. Project Row Houses. In 1993, artist Rick Lowe and other African-American artists in Houston, Texas, saw this row of dilapidated buildings and row houses and saw an opportunity. And so what they did was created a project that started off creating studios, but really, really engaged other folks in the community, working with low-income folks, and now has grown so big that there's artists coming from all over the world to come and engage in cultural heritage. And also, it is actually one of the projects that's gotten so big that it has become almost problematic in some way, and I'm happy to talk about that after. In 2015, I had the opportunity to take some of my learning and work within a community engagement process. Plan B TV South End offered a few artist grants to go into communities in Burlington to do some more research and find out what people wanted in the South End. A colleague of mine got one of these grants and worked with folks in low-income housing in the South End, doing a process using questionnaires and focus groups and one-on-one interviews to hear about their visions and their struggles about the South End. And we brought that, created a mural and brought that to the South End charrette that Plan B TV South End did to try to include their voices. They said that in that process, they felt their voices were heard. While they thought their voices were heard, we also thought that the process was problematic. And one of the charrettes at Arts Riot, we did a guerrilla installation called Occupy Small Street, which you see little toys here. And they have little protest signs saying what they were frustrated with the process. And we also encouraged other people to fill out protest signs. So it was part of that. Artist Suzanne Lacey engaged in a decade-long process called the Oakland Projects in the Oakland area. This was a particular one called Roof on Fire in 1993, where 220 high school students, unscripted and unedited, talked about life and sex and drugs and education and their future. This went really fast. Flaviana Rodriguez is an artist also in the Bay Area who is known for her Migration is Beautiful Butterfly, works primarily in immigration and women's rights and women's bodies. She is a printmaker, and her work has been replicated and seen throughout the country, especially now that we're looking at more immigration issues. She also started an organization called Culture Strike that works with artists and folks with marginalized identities to really include those voices and make sure that that is part of creating little acts of resistance and taking these voices and these ideas to the streets. And this is also in the Oakland area. Earlier this year in 2019, I had the opportunity to start my own project called At the Root. That's a community engagement project. One of the things I've been able to do is partner with local organizations like 350 Vermont and Vermont Women's March to have signs and banner workshops in which we create literally signs and banners and creating little arts of resistance. Another thing that I do is a monthly series called the Over Dinner Series, in which we get together and talk about the issues that are pressing to all of us right now. We talk about racism and economy and everything. And so, these kind of the conversations that we might have over dinner or have over drinks and really kind of get into the heart of what we are trying to do and figure out ways that we can resist and fight back. But in this case, we're doing it with a facilitator who has some experience in the topic of whatever we're talking about. And this is one here with about collectivized economies, which is a really great experience. Sometimes community engagement doesn't work the way we want it to. And it's good to remember that community engagement really is about the process. And community engagement is about building relationships and really listening to people and remembering that process is key. Audience participation is not community engagement. And so I just also wanted to share that we are a very strong community with a history of community engagement, and this is a great time for us to continue to come together and find new and old ways to engage in resistance and community engagement, and I hope we can all keep doing this together. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. All right. Our next presenter, Jenna Emerson. And her talk this evening, her presentation, Sex Education Through Comedy. All right.
Okay. So if I understand this right, for every slide, I just unbutton one button, right? Great. Great, I got the memo. Okay, am I ready? You Pecha. Thank you. So my name is Jenna. I am a comedian, and I'm also a sex educator. What? Thank you. I do work at UVM as a sex educator. I have my master's in sex ed, and I've been doing comedy for about 10 years. Yes. So I actually host, I started up a theater down in the South End called Revelry Theater, and it's almost been a year of hosting a monthly show called Sex with Jenna, which has been my most vulnerable project. And I want to share with you a few things that I've done and a few things that I've learned. So something about sex education, if you've ever had it, not all of you have, unfortunately, is that it can be pretty fucked up, right? There's a lot of shame, there's a lot of fear-based sex ed, and just some facts. But there's very little about relatability and also the fun of sex, right? Do we agree that sex can be fun? Okay, yeah, we'll get there in the next 5 minutes. So these are some buttons, for example, that I even have at UVM. So give it up if you love internal clitorises. Who really loves them? Because I got 2 pins. All right. And then I even dress as genitalia in my show. So every month, I educate on the internal clitoris and the parts about it because it matters. Yes, it matters. Absolutely. But some things that I've learned from this show is what is sexual liberation and what is sexually liberating sex ed. So these are some things that I've been discovering, and what I found is that sexually liberating sex ed is actually a lot of unlearning. Right? Because we have these messages in our culture, in our education, that we actually first have to strip away. And when we start to unlearn, what's left? So then that's where we start the reimagination. So something of this show is my reimagination, right? I am learning what it means to be sexually liberated little by little at my show, both as my internal work and for others. Right? And internal clitoris work. Yes, we're there. And some ways that I do this is using comedy as a tool to accomplish this. So sometimes it looks like being sexually liberated by coming out to your own show, dancing to "Sex with Me is Amazing" with your boss in the audience. And just without shame, dancing as much as I can, while having a balance between silliness and seriousness. Because there is a lot of sex ed that I actually do in the show, even though it's at like 10 o'clock at night on a Saturday, through laughter, right? And that's also part of that community building and feeling connected to others. And another piece is that I don't make money off of this show. And so another passion of mine is social justice. And so I actually do bring in community organizers. I donate to different charities because sex ed is also much more than just the facts, like I said, right? Yes, I was Areola, the little sex educator. It's as if Ariel was a sex educator. It's an amazing song. So through parody songs, through dancing, through costumes, and through actual sex ed, people leave the show feeling more liberated, and so do I. This is Sebastian singing about lube. Under the sheets, everything's better when it is wetter. Take it from me. Yeah, you got the idea. I didn't put singing on here. But it's this thing of what does it mean to be sexually liberated is I'm still figuring it out. But I found that there's some components. One is that it takes a lot of vulnerability. It takes a lot for me to go up there and to be as courageous and confident as I am talking about something that is taboo and is seen still in that way to people who may not all be there with me. The other is that it's got to be fun, right? It's got to be pleasure-centered, and that is what is my imagination of what sexual liberation can look like. And that also leads to freedom. So producing this show, this is me singing Free Bleedin' to the tune of Tom Petty's Free Fallin' with so much menstrual blood in the air. It's that reimagination of what could be. And it's also relatable, right? Because the biggest thing about sex ed is that you are normal. What you're doing is normal. And once we can relate to each other, we can normalize, and then we can actually get the education that we deserve, right? And what else do I got? So I've loved having the guests on and spreading the message, and I've just found that for me, it's done so much. Like, it takes so much to get on a stage, even when you don't feel it, right? Even when I'm not saying that I'm the most sexually liberated person. I am far from it. But talking about squirting in front of 40 people can be a really fun experience. Especially with somebody who's been a lesbian for 50 years, as in this photo. We had a really good conversation. And next month, it's going to be great because my parents are going to be in town. And I cannot wait to give them a sex talk about menopause. So, in the end, I hope this is the only pitch, but I hope that you can come in both senses of the word. And I hope that through going to my show and also orgasming, that will also lead you one more step closer towards your own sexual liberation. Thank you.
It is tough to follow some folks. Thanks, Jenna. Our next presenter is Rick Carlson. His talk tonight, his presentation, Boys, Toys, Too. Celebrate your ride, the passion, the art.
Thank you. Yes, it is. When I was just an emerging young pup full of dreams of glory, I wanted to build a house and put a tractor-trailer truck in the living room. Actually, I wanted the tractor part at eye level in the foyer on a pedestal bathed in theater lights. I saw the truck as a dimensional sculpture, and I wanted to present it that way, only from the inside looking up. Trucks are objects of beauty, and their owners cherish them with passion and pride. This is the Bounty Hunter, and it prowled Vermont's Route 7 for decades. The 60s and 70s saw the Autocar brand custom engineer some of the biggest, baddest trucks ever put to work in the dirtiest, toughest, most rugged vocations imaginable. This one worked the Alaska Pipeline and now resides in Ferrisburg, Vermont. The realities of life and love dashed my initial dream, but replaced it with a digital world of imagery. With this new age, I didn't have to build a house around a single truck, but I could build a digital house around many trucks. Ask my family how much I am smitten with ladders. Stowe every year hosts the Classic and Antique Car Show, sponsored by the Vermont Automobile Enthusiasts, and features many showstoppers like this lovingly restored 1929 American LaFrance fire engine. It's so splendid, how can you not swoon? 1958 Chevrolet Task Force Apache step-side pickup truck. All Chevrolet light-duty trucks were now called Apache. Of all the cars and trucks in the world, if I could have just one, this would be it, with a 6-cylinder engine and 3 on the tree. That's me. My tastes are simple. And then there are the street rods. They invade Vermont by the thousands every September and are an exercise in artistry and color. The attention to detail with these brilliantly crafted machines is meticulous, and their builders are artists, each and every one. Did I mention color? Here is another street rod, and while muted, this image is set in black and white, and then placed on a 12% sphere to draw it out and make it pop. A work of art then becomes a work of art. Put it on canvas. Are we having fun yet? Pontiac was the Ottawa leader best known for his failed attempt to take Fort Detroit from the British in 1763. Little could he imagine being enshrined 200 years later as a symbol of American muscle in the modern era GTO. This is a brilliantly restored 68 Chevrolet Camaro convertible at a car show called Heaven on Wheels in a church parking lot. The hidden headlights indicate it's a rally sport, and the 327 on the front fender declares its power. Thank you, researcher Nat Kennedy. Holly Hunter got to see some of my work and liked this one, as do I. I call it almost black and white because the white Chrysler New Yorker is in color. To me, that defines nuance. The black and white was at the Shelburne Museum, and that gives it presence. And oh yeah, Holly gave me a hug. MG through the ages has been the true mark of British sports cars. Their motto was, getting there should be as much fun as where you're going. This 58 MGA is a rare coupe and was the first MG style to top 100 miles per hour, due primarily to the aerodynamics. The AC Cobra is an iconic classic. This is a Factory 5 Challenge Series race car with a Ford 392 SVO V8 engine built in Charlotte by Peter and Oliver Demick. Hundreds of hours of father-son time, priceless. And then I experienced an epiphany, and I realized that this isn't about cars, it's about people. Here is Ray Tomlinson with the Vermont Automobile Enthusiasts. As an aside, it's a 55 Dodge job-rated C-Series pickup truck, but his expression tells our story. In 1948, the Pontiac Torpedo Silver Streak was one of only two ways to get an 8-cylinder engine in a General Motors A body and considered one of the first muscle cars. It had concealed hinges on the doors, and the gas cap was hidden by a flip-up door. Now, there's a reason to smile. These are my friends, Steve and Anita Bush, and this is an unrestored 1962 Daimler SP250. Steve and Anita share the United Kingdom's oldest car company with the world and are true ambassadors of this historic mark. Here is Ben Hunt explaining the particulars of his 45 Dodge former fire engine that has been his ongoing project for decades. The truck's name is Gypsy. Ben's a car guy. Hot rods are in his blood. He continually talks about what's happening next, and that makes him a true visionary. Yo, Ben. Nate and Jane Palmer with Maxine. Maxine is a 58 Morris Minor Traveler that has been rebuilt once and refurbished since then. Jane says, I love this car because it's not only fun to drive, but everywhere you go, you're greeted with smiles and thumbs up. Everybody loves Maxine, and we love Jane. Her name is Teal, and if you look closely, you'll see that her car seat is in a 2-seat cabin, that the seats are soft leather, that the transmission is gated, that there's a row of toggle switches on the console, and that there is an unmistakable prancing horse. Yes, it's a Ferrari, but of course, this is about people. A photograph transcends the written word and can be personal or public, intimate or profound. A photograph is a poem, a novel, a memory, a dream. Cherish your memories, project your dreams, save your images, share your world. Happy birthday, David. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rick. That was great. Our next presenter, Gyllian Rae Svensson. Svensson. Is that right? Did I get it? Okay. And her title to her presentation is, "If the cancer doesn't kill you, the opioids will try."
All right, I'm ready. Greetings and salutations. I am Gyllian Rae Svensson, and this evening I'm going to share with you my personal story of pain and give you a glimpse into my ongoing tale of survival, because if the cancer doesn't kill you, the opioids will try. Fun, huh? Don't worry, even if it's dreadful, it'll only be a few minutes. I'm a lifelong artist and a musician in constant pursuit of a livable wage. Born from centuries of generational poverty, I've learned to excel at making something beautiful out of what others discard. I have founded several socially responsible businesses, the Bobbin Sustainable Design, Old Jack Zip Vintage Records and Books, and my latest creation, Jilly Weed Seed. Before I continue with my tale, it's crucial for me to take a moment to acknowledge my amazing family. Michael, Jason, Arvid, and Chaz, without whom I would not be here this evening. They are my inspiration, my loves, and my reason for being. A special shout out to my husband, Michael, who took a leave from work to be by my side. This story begins in the summer of 2014. I had a long, painful history of lady problems, and after birthing 2 children, I had decided to take my uterus out of its misery. Just a few days after the surgery to have my uterus and cervix removed, I received that all-dreaded phone call from my doctor. They had found cancerous cells. Now, I was in quite the dilemma. Because my doctor did not know about the cancer before the surgery, they used a robot arm, which morcellated my uterus into pieces for extraction, thereby likely releasing cancerous cells into my abdomen. A scan was done, no signs of cancer were present, so I decided to wait. 4 years later, in 2018, I went to my doctor complaining of severe pain in my lower back that circled around my hip and down my leg. It hurt to sit, it hurt to stand. My blood work came back great, but I knew something was wrong. I demanded a scan, and lo and behold, they found a 4-centimeter tumor in my psoas muscle. A biopsy determined that the tumor was indeed cervical cancer. Who knew that you could get cervical cancer when you didn't even have a cervix anymore? Lucky me. This began my summer of daily radiation and weekly chemotherapy treatments. I'm a trauma survivor with complex PTSD who suffers from panic attacks and claustrophobia. Needless to say, I was not thrilled about radiation. During treatment, it's crucial to lie extremely still. You are placed into leg molds, your arms are raised above your head, and small tattoos are placed on your skin to perfectly line up with the lasers. I used a variety of techniques to cope with the cancer treatments. Instead of wearing the dehumanizing hospital gowns, I wore my own collection of handmade dresses, sewn from the vintage fabrics of my great-aunts and great-grandmother. I covered my eyes and I listened to jazz while my husband counted down the minutes from the other room. During my second week of treatments, I got viciously sick. Nausea, vomiting, pain, and cramping. Was it food poisoning? The flu? No. This was my first taste of opioid withdrawal. Convinced I was dying, I lay on the bathroom floor and forgave the junkies who had robbed us years before. If this was how they had suffered, I could understand the impulse to do anything to make it stop. Every Monday for 6 weeks, I underwent chemotherapy. Those days were the worst. I despise needles. After radiation, I had my blood drawn, and then I waited for results to determine if I would get the privilege of having thousands of dollars worth of poisons injected in my veins. Veins which literally roll away and shrink up inside of me at the thought. This is me on loads of opioids. The experts say that after 7 days, after just one prescription refill, that you are addicted. This is me on month 6 of continuous opioids. These pills and patches are so insidious that when you are on them, you continuously think and genuinely believe that you are perfectly normal. On August 20th, 2018, I had my last chemo treatment. As is the tradition, everyone who could gathered around while I rang a bell to celebrate the moment and send a message of hope. This was my last day to receive poisons in my veins, but nowhere near the end of the opioids coursing through my body. As is the tradition on your last day of radiation, everyone who is able gathers around while you strike the gong. This day was August 21st, 2018, the occasion of my 13th wedding anniversary. After weeks of daily monitoring and my life revolving around cancer, I felt not unlike a baby bird thrust from mama's nest with no plans on how to get off the opioids. On the morning of my very last radiation treatment, we packed up the family and escaped to the beach for 3 precious days of healing. As was my new normal, I spent a fair amount of that vacation in the bathroom, clinging to the sink as waves of dizziness, nausea, vomiting, and the endless hot and cold flashes washed over me. A few months later, as good heathens do, we were celebrating Yule. We raised our glasses full of glug to toast my good health. In this photo, I clearly have a fentanyl patch on one arm and alcohol in the other, completely oblivious that this could cause me to overdose and die. Thankfully, that night I puked for 7 hours straight. For months, I had seen numerous doctors, nurses, and pharmacists almost daily. Everyone asked about my pain levels. Often I was offered more narcotics. No one ever told me that mixing alcohol and opioids could cause you to overdose and die. I shudder to think of how close I came to being another American statistic, leaving my children motherless. I was one of the lucky ones who made it through the darkness of 2018 and emerged still among the living. I'm a proud cancer survivor who must take a pill every 6 hours or I will be horrendously sick. It took 10 months to free myself completely from the fentanyl and reduce the opioids to the lowest dose. It is a struggle. In addition to my amazing family, I credit my friend weed as my primary reason for survival. Vermont cannabis medicine has helped me eat, helped me sleep, gave me comfort, and aided in my ongoing tapering off the opioids. I've created the character of Jilly Weedseed to educate the public about the benefits of cannabis therapy. I was one of the lucky ones who made it through the darkness. Oh, life is pain. That I am standing here before you in pain proves that I am alive. In my experience, the opioids do not take the pain away. Instead, they make you not care about the pain, while they rewire your brain to only desire comfortable numbness. If cancer has taught me anything, it is the importance, the sweetness of one's own mind. For this, I am blessed. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Tremendous. Okay, so now we have our intermission. But before I release you to the beer, a little announcement. So one of the things that makes PechaKucha so wonderful is that people can play with the format a little bit. And the next presenter after the intermission is doing just that. So what I would like you guys to do is there's going to be bags that are available for you up here at the front. Please select one bag. Do not open it. Do not look inside it. Don't play with anything. Just take the bag, and you'll be instructed on what to do with it in the next presentation, okay? If you have trouble getting to a bag, let us know. We're happy to bring you one. All right, thank you. The next presenter coming up. Oh, actually, we have one slide. Swag. We got swag. Yes. So we got pins, and you'll notice that the pins are actually color coded to each of the events. So this is actually the fall colors. So make sure you get. We have some of the previous summer colors available too, so you can collect all the swag. And then we also have stickers for whatever you want to put them on. So swag. Okay, so our next presenter, the lead-off presenter for the second half, is Erika Senft Miller, who's going to be doing something unique.
All right. Let's go. Let's go to the beach. Seeing is a highly multisensory, immersive, and personal experience. Seeing is more than looking. If we want to see well, we need to engage our whole being. Looking is simply directing our eyes toward a visual stimulus. Our eyes are only the receptors where visual signals enter into our nervous system. The act of seeing is complicated. It begins in the back of our brain, the visual cortex, where visual signals are processed and then contextualized. Many areas of the brain work together to make connections and meaning in order for us to see. So tonight, you're probably expecting interesting slides or images. Now, look at the dark screen. Imagine something is wrong with the projector, something that can't be fixed. You will still be able to see what I want to show you. Make sure you're sitting comfortably, you're breathing free, not strained, your feet supported, and your head and neck relaxed. Now, please close your eyes. No strain on your eyes. Let your eyelids close over your eyeballs, just like shades over a window. Relax, inhale, release extra tension with an exhale, especially around your eyes. Now, imagine an ocean beach. You standing at the beach, looking out at the ocean. Take in the scene, see the colors, the shapes, the movements, the sound, scent, texture, the air around your body, the air you inhale, temperature, smell, texture. Can you see it? Remember this image and experience. And now open your eyes. Can you see the slide on the screen? Do you see the beach, the water, some people, maybe surfers? How does it match up with your visualized image? Now we are all looking at the same image, but are we actually seeing the same thing? All of you sitting in the first two rows, please take the imaginary Alice in Wonderland potion that makes you bigger and taller. Feel it working, feel it working. Stand up and get on your toes. Make yourself as tall as possible. Stand up, stand up. Now, all of you in the rows behind, take the potion that makes you smaller. Slouch down in your chair as much as you can and fold up. Make yourself as small as you can. Now, from your new point of view, look at the slide. Take note of how it has shifted. What do you see? Now, all super tall people in the front slowly shrink down to your original size and then further to the smallest possible size. All of you in the back start growing and expanding to super tall. Get as tall as possible. From your new point of view, again, look at the slide. Take note of how it has shifted. What do you see? Now, come back to your regular seated positions and height to sit down on your seat. You were all given a little shock bag. From this bag, take out the small bag labeled A. Open it and smell it. Now, while you take a deep breath, also look at the slide. And now, reach inside of the bag and also notice the textures, your fingers moving through the sand, some suntan lotion, seashells, still smelling while seeing the image on the slide. Take note of how your seeing is shifting. What do you see? Now, when we add sensory experience, how and what we see changes. Once we add other senses to the visual cues, we begin to have associations. What do you think about that? No matter how lovely it smells, emotions are major view shifters. Do you notice the heart racing a bit seeing this image? Your eyes narrow and your neck maybe tighten a little bit, tightness in your stomach. I am flooded with anxiety just looking at this image, also standing up here. Some ocean, but some different associations. Now, recovering from this, please close bag A and take out bag B. Smell and touch. What do you smell? Now, you look at the beach and ocean scene and you smell maybe chlorine. How many of you feel confused? How many of you start to thinking of chlorine in swimming pools? How many of you start to integrate and trying to make sense of these contradictory signals? When our senses become confused, it has an effect on our body and well-being. For example, seasickness or car sickness. When the message from our different senses are conflicting, it creates tension. Now, while sensory mismatch creates an acute sense of sickness, we always aim for homeostasis, which we equate with well-being. All senses aligned and well-balanced puts us at ease. Remember the ocean smell in bag A? Go back to that one. In addition, you find some saltwater taffy in your shark bag. Unwrap one and enjoy. Now, are your senses aligning again? The more senses we involve in the experience of seeing, the deeper it will be embedded in our memory. Now, I agree with John Berger, who in his book, Ways of Seeing, remarks that both images and words are man-made, and we always see in context and relationship to ourselves. The kicker is that we don't know what the person next to us is experiencing, associating, and therefore seeing. You have 2 more taffies in your bag. Those are your homework. Tomorrow at sunset, give one of the taffy to another person and have one yourself. While you both absorb the sweet taste, ask them about what the saltwater taffy makes them think of, or what they see in their mind, and share one thing about seeing you've learned tonight. Now, when we are curious about each other's viewpoints, experience, and associations, our choices of what we are looking at expand, and we begin to see the world around us with all our senses and endless new perspectives. You can't surf the same wave twice, but you can see it in more than 20 ways.
All right. Thank you, Erika. That was great. Now, for our next presenter, let's tuck those bags away. Come back from the ocean. Come back to the mountains. Our next presenter is Brian O'Neill. I'm going to give this a whirl. The title of his talk, El Rumbo de mis Pecados. How was that, Brian? Very good. Thank you. The way of my sins.
Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight, and thank you to those volunteers that pulled this together. Let's try it. The following paintings and sculptures were in my recent exhibition in the Museum of the City in Cuernavaca, Mexico, where my wife Liliana and I live. The show was called El Rumbo de mis Pecados, The Way of My Sins. The first 2 slides are installation shots. My work ranges from abstract to representational. There were 50 drawings, paintings, and sculptures, and an installation of 180 spray paintings. I'm concerned with the themes of language, politics, and religion. How do I bridge the American-Mexican cultural divide? As ever, I'm trying to provoke. Los senderos de la creación, the paths of creation. This series of 5 paintings refers to the creation process. These paintings are about this size and painted on thick cardboard boxes that are flattened. La germinación de la semilla, the germination of the seed. I often use an aggressive grinder as a drawing tool to reveal the corrugations, which for me represent dolor, pain in both the maker and the viewer. La lucha de las formas, the battle of forms. How does abstract work address verbal concerns? The best it can do is penetrate the viewer viscerally, pre-verbally, immediately. La tentación de Génesis, the temptation of Genesis. There is no such thing as chaos or random. It is impossible for a human. I am guilty of the arrogance of the artist as demigod, creating something from almost nothing. La separación de los colores, the separation of colors. And God said, let there be color. And he separated the primaries from the secondaries. But like humans, no color is pure. They have the seed of their opposite. El eje de los sentimientos, the axis of feelings. If the flattened boxes were opened, the flattened boxes above were opened, they would look like this. A precarious box with an access of brooms for sweeping the memories of the living and the shadows of the dead. This is a different view. A geometric cloud, a bacchanalian longitude and latitude lines, the polar extremes of suffering and joy, creation and destruction. How is it hung? How are the brooms connected? Very tricky. La memoria de las herramientas, 1. The memory of tools, 1. After doing a significant amount of abstract paintings, I decided to paint symbolically, somewhat in the manner of many Mexicans. If the level is plumb, the painting can't be. The dog's body is a coffin. La memoria de las herramientas, 2. The memory of tools, 2. Destapa lo que llevas dentro. Uncork what lies within is a Coca-Cola ad. I want to use it more metaphorically. The plumb bob points to the center of the earth and reminds me of my center. La memoria de herramientas 3. After 200 symbolic drawings, I selected a few for these 3 paintings. These included a Siamese interracial eyeball, hands, and a burning bush with eyeballs. Nubes, clouds, very abstract and clean. I drew the clouds, cut the contour, and peeled the top surface carefully, a geometric cloud. I painted the tonalities and later added the burned crosses. Black blood on the cross. San Miguel y Lucifer, Lucifero, the rebellion and death of the bringer of light, Venus. Lucifer has a tattoo, love of God. Like Venus, he tried to ascend to the highest point of heaven. San Miguel y Lucifero 2. I added the sacrificial horse, a symbol anchored in our world. It is a dense, tightly woven, and suffocating composition, rudely painted. El ojo gráfico de México, the graphic eye of Mexico. This is my version of the Mexican flag. The background is a simplified Aztec sun calendar. Dolor, verde, verdant pain. El desfile de las almas, the parade of the souls. Spray paint on colored paper, 30 in a group, 6 groups. I use many masks, handmade and natural. The process of painting is at times a dance, at times a listening. The same, an installation shot of the 180 drawings. A painting will eventually tell you what it needs. You have to listen. This project of listening took about a year. Las tortillas olímpicas, Olympic tortillas. Real corn tortillas cut and interwoven to simulate the Olympic rings. A little humor, but perhaps 50 years too late. The Mexican Olympics of 1968 were preceded by a significant amount of violence instigated by the Mexican and American governments. Autorretrato, self-portrait. More humor? Acrylic on a survival blanket with a garden faucet dipped in beeswax. An artist's first job is creation. The second is survival. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Our next presenter, Marcie Hernandez. The title of her presentation, Sing, Dance, and Have Some Mofongo. Did I say that right? All right.
All right. So this is where my story begins, kind of. This is me circa 1990. And as a kid, I had many loves, but I loved music, and I loved heart-shaped sunglasses. I'm an only child. I grew up in Rochester, New York, which is in, depending on who you ask, upstate or Western New York. But both of my parents are originally from Puerto Rico, so I had a bicultural childhood. And growing up biculturally presented some challenges, but it presented a lot of advantages as well. And my parents, like many people, came to the States for a better life. There were more job opportunities. And so these are my folks. This is my dad, Luis, or Louis, and my mom, Luce, or Lucy. And I grew up in a pretty musical household. My father plays guitar, my mom is a singer, my grandmother's a singer. And so from an early age, I started taking singing lessons and dance lessons and piano lessons and just loved music. And we would often make trips down to Puerto Rico. So my family's from Caguas. And I would get to visit family and just kind of have this totally different experience when I was on the island with the food and the music and the culture. And I really loved those trips. This is a photo that I took soon after Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico. And I wanted to portray an image that could capture what it's like to be bicultural. And so she's dressed in the Puerto Rican flag, and the tears are due to the devastation that happened after the hurricane hit. So as a kid, even though I loved music, I was naturally pretty shy. And pretty early on, I was terrified of making mistakes in those like early recitals that I would do. And so I had this conflict around loving music, but also being nervous about expressing myself musically. So the first time I got to experience a parranda, which is sort of the Puerto Rican version of Christmas caroling, it kind of changed my life because I got to see the way that music really connects people, and everyone participates in parrandas, and it doesn't matter your skill level, everyone's a musician, everyone sings, everyone dances, and there's a lot of mofongo. So this is mofongo. It's made of plantains, and it's filled with magic and deliciousness, and it's a traditional Puerto Rican dish, often served during the holidays. Let's just look at it. And so, so you know, we would go to Puerto Rico, and the more I had this exposure to people just connecting through music, I saw the beauty and the power that music has to promote bonding and to really build community. And so it really helped me evolve as a singer-songwriter, as a performer, and to kind of get over that fear of making a mistake or, you know, singing the wrong words or playing the wrong chord. And so I wanted to kind of take this to another level. And so I became a board-certified music therapist. And there's my board certification. I worked hard for that. And so music therapy is the use of music to address non-musical goals by a credentialed professional within a therapeutic relationship. And we use music to address physical goals, cognitive goals, social, emotional. And this is a great picture that kind of shows the very unique way that music activates different parts of the brain. And this is why it can be such a powerful medium to use with in treating all sorts of ailments or folks that have any type of disability. And I loved this. I wanted to share this as well because these are just some of the benefits of singing. Simply singing can lower your blood pressure, can decrease anxiety. I sang all the way here in my car. and it releases endorphins, so it's a really powerful thing. So now as a music therapist, I have my own practice, and I work with all ages and all abilities, and this is one older woman that I work with, and she does have a musical background. She has advanced Alzheimer's, and we use music to support her cognition, to help her connect with her family and her friends. This was a story that was in 7 days about a year ago. This is someone that I used to work with, and she has Rett syndrome, and she uses a little device you can see there. It's an eye gaze device, so she can play instruments using her eyes, which is such a beautiful thing. And so we worked on her motor skills and cognitive skills. This was taken at the Love Your Brain retreat, which is a great retreat that happens up in Zeno Mountain for traumatic brain injury survivors. So I got to lead some drum circles with them, and we did some group songwriting, and I collaborated with an art therapist to help them share their stories. And this is over at Ethan Allen Residence in the New North End, and I do a weekly group with the seniors there. And everyone in this picture has, some form of memory impairment, and everyone in this picture is able to participate and be successful and play an instrument and sing along and move to the music. So this is really my main message, and I really wanted to share this message that you are musical, especially for the people, and I hear this a lot, that believe they can't carry a tune, they can't keep a beat, usually because somebody maybe early on told you that. But don't believe that. As humans, we are musical beings. We have a pulse and a heartbeat. And I think this is important because music connects us. And I think we are in a time right now when we really need more and more things and experiences that can connect all of us. So I feel that it's really important to put yourself out there, get out of your comfort zone, and give yourself permission to sing, to dance, play an instrument if you've been thinking about learning an instrument, but maybe you felt a little, uncomfortable about it. And give yourself permission to go to Puerto Rico and have some mofongo. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcie. I'm ready for some mofongo. Who else? Yeah. All right, our next presenter, Rolf Kielman. Yes, might be familiar for some PechaKucha alumni here. Rolf has participated in a number of PechaKuchas, always an entertainer. The talk of his presentation this evening, Mr. Mugweri's New House. Rolf?
Can I grab it out of there? Okay. You hear me all right? So you can start. This is Mr. Mugweri. He lives in a small village outside of Kamuli, which is in Uganda. Kamuli is about half the size of Burlington, 20,000 people or so. His life's difficult. Some tough things been happening to him, at least when you're looking at this picture. He has an affliction, a small parasite called jiggers, which kind of gets into your toenails and fingernails, elbows, kneecaps. And his house, as you could see, is not in the best of condition. This is Josephine. She's a social worker in this area. You can tell she's a force, and when she asks for something, you usually say yes. And she's very involved in much of the village life around Kamuli. And she's recruited, these are Mr. Mugweri's fellow villagers, very interested in making sure that Mr. Mugweri has a better life. Things have been going badly for him, and these people are ready. They're kind, generous, and ready to go. This is Marcie on the left, the young woman in the blue shirt. She's sort of our fixer over there. She can do just about anything here. She's buying some new clothes and a bed, for Mr. Mugweri. She's part of a small foundation that we work with. So with all those villagers and a few of us, we started to fix some things. We really had to get Mr. Mugweri out of that house. It was in rough shape. We put an orange tarpaulin over it to really keep the worst of the weather out of it. And you can see the yard is a little misshapen. We started to clean that up. It was really nice. There were about 40 villagers that really jumped into this task. You pretty much burn clothing. You, in order to get rid of this parasite, you redo the floor inside the house. A lot of work in the yard. And all of these people were very committed to, making things better for their neighbor. We dug a new pit latrine. That's pretty much the sewer system of choice in this particular remote area. And Mr. Mugweri himself also needed some medical treatment. And I was amazed at how willingly he let those close to him deal with some of the, very private issues. This is a medical worker who came to administer a kind of disinfectant bath that went on for probably about 16 weeks, where you really sort of take parts of the body and immerse it. This is not a pleasant talk, is it? Anyway, this really does solve the problem over time, especially if you match it up with, cleaning of Mr. Mugweri's house. He's only 35 years old. So this gets me, that's not him. This gets me to the next part. Josephine, I told you she was kind of a forceful lady. She turned at one point and said to me, well, Rolf, do you think we can repair Mr. Mugweri's house? I'm an architect, but I don't really know so much about that kind of construction. But Ivan was the builder that we recruited, a cousin or something, and he was, we asked him that question, can we repair this house? And he didn't hesitate at all. He said, no, Mr. Mugweri needs a new house, a new brick house. So I had a little book with me. I did some quick drawings. Ivan took the drawings. He leaned up against a tree because we asked him what the new house was going to cost. And he came back and he said, it's going to be 2 million shillings, which you do the quick math, it's about $506. And some friends and I, we got together and we said, okay, we'll pool our resources. And we said, okay, to Ivan, go ahead. And as you could see, in no time whatsoever, the bricks were there that afternoon. There wasn't any time wasted. Sand showed up. Brick is sort of the material of choice in this part of the world. It's a pretty sturdy material. A lot of clay in the ground, and it's easy to manufacture the brick, although it's kind of soft. Fortunately, living on the equator is not like living in Vermont. When you dig a foundation, you only go down a foot or so. And this is the beginnings of that foundation. Ivan had a squad of 2 other people who were helping him. So here we're starting to mix the sand, the cement, small bits of gravel, and we're starting to build the foundation. You can see that on the lower left. And these guys worked very hard. You can see there were some interim shots, but I only had 20. The house, it went up fairly quickly. It's kind of an interesting method of building with brick. You can see the window openings. They pour a kind of concrete lintel over it, and then there's a little ventilation opening. So here the house is pretty much complete. The roof is just purlins, wood, with corrugated metal. This is Mr. Mugweri in the blue shirt, second from the right, along with the building squad. And we're getting ready to move a new bed, clothes, and so forth into Mr. Mugweri's new house. And this is Mr. Mugweri. He doesn't always look happy. He's kind of shy, but he was very happy. And Josephine was very happy. The entire village was very happy. And I couldn't wait to get back to Vermont and tell some of my builder friends about the house that we built in 3 days for under $5 a square foot. And what the heck was the matter with them?
Thank you, Rolf. Our next presenter, Julia Wayne, will be presenting Oakledge for All.
I'm going to keep my water here in case I need it because I have a cold. That is okay. All right, I'm ready. Okay, so I am a special educator in Vermont and a mother of these kids. And I realized 10 years ago that many of my students couldn't access any of their community playgrounds. And actually, thousands of Vermonters can't access any of our community playgrounds. So I made it my mission to change our paradigm. And this is Oakledge for All. Not yet. This is our design. My committee, Oakledge for All, or OFA, as we lovingly call ourselves, is working with the Burlington Parks and Rec to build this playground. And we are a group of educators, families, community members who care deeply about this mission. Oh, here we go. Here's Universal Design, a story involving a student in a wheelchair who had to wait for the stairs in his school to be shoveled before he could get in. And he said, but if you shovel the ramp first, we can all get in. And I would argue, why not just have a ramp and no stairs? It's more cost-effective and inclusive. These are images taken 2 years ago of all the playgrounds in Burlington. They're fun, but you have to be able to use your arms and legs to run and walk and climb and access these structures, and 1 in 13 families have a person who can't. Many people can't even get to the structures through the grass or mulch using mobility devices. Annie Borden, an OFA volunteer and mom of 6-year-old twins, told me the other night at bedtime my daughter Posey began to cry out of the blue. She said, it's not fair that when we go to the school playground, I get to swing and slide and run and climb, and Otis can't do anything. I started to climb too, and I hugged her. I promised Oakledge for All would be better. So I started out on my quest 10 years ago, researching and visiting playgrounds. I had a lot of fun. This is the Helen Diller Playground in Dolores Park, San Francisco, surrounded by completely accessible pathways to the playground, around and within, and it's an incredibly stunning design. What struck me about this playground is that they took that traditional structure and completely dissolved it into several different islands of play that were open-ended and had an accessible component in each piece. We'll just look at that. And here, here's a wide slide from the playground that someone could be supported to go down with friends or family with a cement pathway up to it. And the other image is of an accessible boat for imaginative play that you can get in with a mobility device. And the surfacing is rubber, bouncy-like floor with natural landscape embedded throughout. And this is an awesome design. It's so simple, but so awesome and inclusive. Benches at a Shane's Inspiration Playground in LA. And the benches are off-centered to allow people with mobility devices to sit among the crowd and not always off to the side. This is another space I love, which many of us know. It's the accessible treehouse at Oakledge Park. Outdoor recreation in nature is such an important value to so many Vermonters. And through community input, OFA learned that many people really would love a quiet, natural space at a playground if they have a sensory need and need a break. So here's my first concept design. I got a Ben & Jerry's grant. And I worked with an architect, Rusty Keeler, and I pitched it to the Parks and Rec, and they said, yes, we will partner with you, like 9 years ago. Takes some time to do these things, I realized. But it includes like a lot of islands of play. And they had to do a really long site study and master plan, which is very important. But we are included in that master plan, and we're that purple rectangle. Yep. So there it is, the master plan at Oakledge Park. And we had a lot of community charrettes, solicited so much community input. I carried my babies, my newborns around the state, just talking to people about what is important to you. And here's a bunch of scribblings on a map of the park that our design firm, Ground View from Massachusetts, helped. So here's aerial footage of the design, similar to what you saw before. We actually used drones from UVM to take images. It was really cool working with UVM. And if you enter Oakledge Park, the playground will be right as you enter where the lower pavilion is. It'll take over the current playground. Oh, and here's some more detailed plans of the playground. It's really fun and loopy with a man-made hillslide and incorporates trees and natural landscaping. We're not keeping all of these elements that you see because we're trying to save money. But this is the concept design. So here's phase one. We did it. We built one phase, the first phase, last November, and you can see 3 accessible swings, and then there's a regular swing in there as well. And we have popping, contrasting color to support visual impairment. And we have that rubberized accessible surfacing, which is awesome. And we had a pretty awesome ribbon cutting with the mayor. That was pretty cool. So here's our big celebration in May. It was just great to see the community come out and celebrate inclusion. And we had opportunities for people to try out mobility devices and vision simulators to help understand what it might be like to have a disability and play. And here people are enjoying the Sway Fun glider on the left, which is a wheelchair accessible swing, and a nest swing on the right that people can lay down on and swing with friends and family. The best part is that you can watch the sunset and swing. It's pretty amazing. Over the lake, too. And so here's phase 2 in more detail, which we are currently fundraising for. It's facing south with the lake on your right, starting at the hillslide, and we'll have a spinner and a bouncy surface, sand play, and a music garden, and lots of areas to rest along the way, which is really important. And here is south facing north. And you can see we have an accessible stage in view, and the music garden. And so, yeah, we're trying to raise some money. You can find us oakledgeforall.org. That's oakledgeforall.org. And yeah, we have a lot of, we're always looking for more help. So, yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Julia. So I got some bad news, got some good news. The bad news is we're down to one presentation. But the good news, it's going to be a great one, I know it. So our next presenter, Neil Cleary, and the title of his talk is How Not to Be an Idiot, a set of instructions for the aspiring non-idiot. We're going to pay close attention.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I called the presentation that because the way of my sins was taken. And also because apart from any debatable areas of expertise I may have, I spent a lot of time trying to not be an idiot. So I've learned some things along the way and wanted to share them with you. Does anybody here want to be an idiot? Okay, this presentation is not for you. But the rest of you all are in the right place. Let's get started. Look both ways before you cross. This should be pretty basic. Your father's going to tell you on city streets, he's going to show you the way to do it. And that's going to work out fine, except for when you're crossing the street in front of your childhood home, and there's a station wagon rocketing up the street, and you're 4 years old, you're going to forget, unfortunately. You're going to live, but I don't think you'll ever make that mistake again. Speaking of mistakes, don't cheat on your girlfriend in 1996. She really loves you. And you know what? You actually really love her. But you're young and you're stupid and you can't handle it. You're not ready for it yet. It's going to be sad and it's going to end. But before it does, don't do this. P.S. It's also really not worth it. Maybe reconsider this tattoo. Look, Zippity Doo Dah is a song that you associate with your late father. It's very sweet, but the day after you post this picture to Facebook, you're going to learn that it's also a key number in Song of the South, widely known as Disney's most racist animated musical.
Floss your teeth. It's simple. Here's how you do it. You keep a box of floss in the shower with you. That way when you're done showering, you're dripping dry, you're flossing, you're drier when you hit the towel, and you're building good habits. And once during a dental exam, a very attractive young dentist will say, "Oh, you've been flossing," and it's all going to be worthwhile. Don't trip that girl in 3rd grade. Look, she's running around the play structure super fast, and when she falls, she's going to fall super hard. And when she gets up, the look on her face is not going to be pain so much as it is just bewilderment and disappointment, you know. There's better ways to have a crush on someone than to hurt them. Keep driving to the audition. I can't stress this enough. Don't do what you want to do, which is pull over and call ahead and say, "Listen, I'm sorry, there's been a terrible mistake. I'm not a good enough drummer to be in your band." Because guess what? You are a good enough drummer to be in the band, and you get the gig, and you travel all over the world, and you play on television. It's fantastic. So keep on driving. Hitchhike from Des Moines, Iowa to St. Louis if you ever get the opportunity. You ride in the back of open pickup trucks. You drink beer in the passenger seat with that guy from Missouri. You get to camp by a lake with a bunch of little cute families, and only one person asks you if you want to take a shower, and when you say no, he's totally okay with it. I got bad news. Bill's going to die, and he's going to die suddenly. So what you need to do on that day is to fly to Athens, Georgia, and freak out with everybody else who's freaking out. Because guess what? There's not going to be an official funeral, and you're not going to get an invitation. So you're going to grieve in the worst way possible, which is just alone by yourself every day just a little bit. But don't get super high your first time either. Because while you're freaking out and your friends are incapacitated, the only person that's going to be available to talk you down is your friend's sketchy older brother. And you don't like him and you don't trust him, and it's not going to be a good situation. Just pace yourself and take little hits. Don't not buy the guitar. You know the one I'm talking about. It's the 1960s Gibson J45. It's got the name Jeff scratched in inch-high letters in the finish, but as soon as you strum the guitar, you know that is already your guitar. You need to buy it. But you're going to take a couple days to think about it, and the guitar is going to disappear. So always buy that guitar. Don't make excuses for racism. Look, your friend doesn't need you to re-explain what that other white person said and why it probably wasn't racist. You're not the expert. He's the expert. He experiences racism every day, so listen to him and learn from his experiences. Don't miss Talking Heads at Patrick Gym in 1983. Admittedly, you're in 6th grade, so you kind of get a pass, but you know that week that it's happening. You know in your heart that it's important, that you should overcome any obstacle to go. You know the day that it's happening, and it's so painful. You think you're too young. You're not. You should go. Don't miss your ex-girlfriend's grandmother's funeral. Look, you think the fact that you just broke up somehow gets you off the hook? You think the fact that you have something else scheduled that day in the same building gets you off the hook? This is bigger than all of that. So don't be an idiot and go do this instead. Okay, congratulations, asshole. You've pulled it off for decades, and nobody knows or maybe cares that you're hungover pretty much all the time. But sooner or later, it's got to matter to you. You know, you think it's this magic escape hatch, but it's an endless pause button. Marry this person. It's 2006, and you're finally ready to accept love into your life and give love. So go ahead and do it. It's fantastic. You meet a wonderful person that you're friends with, and you can have fun together and laugh together. Just all you have to do with this is not fuck this up. Skip this movie. It's called Open Water. It should be called They Die in the End, because guess what? They die in the end. They bob around like little apples for 2 hours of your time, and then they die in the end? Have some self-respect. Go back to school, because guess what? It actually works. Borrow the $100 from your girlfriend, because you can pay her back. You're going to get to start a career. It does everything it says on the tin, except for you're 36, and all your friends are half your age. But that turns out to be not such a big deal. I hope you're learning something here. Don't work meaningless jobs. Like, I get it. You kind of have to a little bit, but don't get used to it. Don't lean into it, because that time you're wasting, that time is your life. So do something that matters to you at least a little bit while you still have the time. You're going to need a career, and you're going to have one, so start it. You're actually not that funny. You don't have to defuse the perceived awkwardness of a situation by saying something inappropriate. Because people like your earnest self just fine, so you can too. And meet this person. This person will show you that you are an idiot in ways you could have never known or imagined or anticipated, and there's kind of nothing you can do about it, but it doesn't matter. He needs you to be exactly who you are, whoever that turns out to be. Thanks.
Is that a great night or what? Yeah. Let's hear it for these guys. All right, so tonight's presentations, all of them, are going to be available within about 2 weeks, maybe less, on RETN's, the Media Factory's website. So you can check them out there. If you want to get even more videos, you can go to PechaKucha.org, and they have over 16,000 videos. And it's kind of cool because you can actually go to cities that you maybe grew up in or spent some time in, and click on those cities and see presentations from them, from those areas and stuff. So it's actually kind of fun to spend some time in. And then if that's not enough for you, there's an app for that. And it's PechaKucha of the Day, and so you can download this, and you can get a curated PechaKucha presentation sent to your phone. So if you just can't get enough PechaKucha between now and January 1, or actually December 31st, which is our next event. Yes. Before I get there, I want to thank our sponsors once again, Mascoma Bank, Media Factory, Solidarity of Unbridled Labor, 7 days. On the program tonight, the program that you picked up, there is a QR code. And the QR code, you can scan that with your phone. There's also, it's listed the URL if you want to do it on your computer. But that way you can give us some feedback. And if you do that, you're entered in to win 2 free tickets to our next show. And our next show, as I alluded to, is December 31st during the Highlight Celebration. It'll be here in FlynnSpace. And the kind of cool thing about that is that we're going to have a theme. And the theme is, because it's 2020, it's kind of Vision 2020, it's optimism. Looking forward. I know you want to. You know you want to. It's really easy to do. Just visit that website right there. It's on our business cards as you exit. We have business cards available with the website listed there. You can go on the website and fill it out, and that's all you got to do. If you're too worried about presenting, but you know somebody would be a great presenter, pick up the card and give it to them. If you have any questions about presenting, or just interested in joining our team of volunteers that put on these events, see anybody with one of these shirts on, we'd love to have you, both as a presenter, as a volunteer, or in any capacity. Thank you. Tonight, following this program, there's an after party at Pizza Verita, just around the corner, go down on St. Paul. The nice thing is it's from 9 to 10, and you get 20% off food when you show your ticket, a program, a pin. So join us. It'll be a lot of fun. Our social media channels, we're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. And lastly, I want to thank you, because you make it all possible, for coming out, for supporting us. This is our second sold-out event here at the FlynnSpace. Really psyched. So thank you. Thank you all very much for coming out. Have a nice evening.